Okay.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Crossline Culture Call. I'm Shannon Shine, Pro 6 here in the Denver area. Joining me is my fabulous co-moderator, Patty Goolsby, also Pro 6 here in the Denver area. And we are so excited to bring you guys these calls. We all learn from everybody. What do we hear from Eric Worre? It's the story that is so important. And we are excited every week to bring you these calls so that you can learn, so that you can see the success that you want through LifeVantage from hearing other people's stories. And we hope and pray every week that you guys are inspired and moved and motivated by these calls. So 2 quotes about culture. I don't have my notes in front of me. 2 quotes about culture. One is culture eats strategy for breakfast every time. And we are so proud of the culture we have here with LifeVantage. And the second is a culture is strong when people work with each other for each other. And a culture is weak when people work against each other for themselves. So here we are all working together, bringing that strong culture. And I'm going to toss it to Patty. She can introduce our speaker.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys, I am really, as I just mentioned, this is Heart Month, and it's a subject that's very dear to my heart. And Shannon and I were talking and brainstorming of who we could get as a guest. And I said, let's ask Dr. Mark Gordon. He's a cardiologist. He's a leader of leaders. He is, I didn't understand what preventive cardiology meant. I know he's into anti-aging cardiology, but the thing I love about Dr. Gordon is he's been there. He decided to do this network marketing business, and I know he's been called every name in the book because of it. I know he loves his family. He's got a beautiful wife, 2 amazing children. And the other thing is I know he loves rock and roll. I had no idea he loved country, but I saw him the other night streaming stuff from Garth Brooks. So we are super excited that Dr. Gordon, you are on the call today. Share with us your story. I know we'll have some questions. Take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, I went through the standard regular cardiology training that, all 99% of cardiologists go through. And probably about 10 years into my practice, I kind of had an epiphany in the middle of the night one night. I was in the cath lab at 2 o'clock in the morning with a 45-year-old guy who was having a heart attack. And so what do you do when somebody's having a heart attack? You go to the cath lab, you find the plugged up artery, and you open it up by putting in a stent. So that's exactly what we were in the process of doing. But I'm saying to myself at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like, gee, this guy's 45, and 45-year-old people shouldn't be having heart attacks. We have got to do a better job at preventing this from happening. And it kind of set me off on a course to go search on my own for techniques and methods that I could help patients prevent them from having these types of problems. And so I started attending nutritional conferences and preventive conferences and so forth. And I was considering doing a fellowship through the University of Arizona at Dr. Andrew Weil. He had an integrative medicine program. But the time commitment was just too great. But still, I had a huge, huge interest in doing the prevention. And I was kind of struggling to try to figure out what it was that I was going to do. So I was doing all my own self-education, reading as many journal articles that I could about nutrition and prevention and so forth. And then I started attending other conferences, and I hooked up with an organization called the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, based off of a recommendation of a family practice friend of mine. And I kind of dipped my toe in the water. I attended some of their advanced cardiac courses and really, really enjoyed it. And then I started to do, I got through all the cardiac stuff, and I decided to just go ahead and do the fellowship. So long story short, in about 3 years' time, I completed the fellowship in anti-aging and regenerative medicine with a special emphasis on the cardiac stuff. But about the time that I was looking at doing the fellowship through the University of Arizona, I got the idea to start my own kind of like natural health, natural prevention cardiology blog. So I actually had that up and running for about a month. And it was at that time that Maria Williams called me and asked me to watch the ABC investigative report. So I did that, and when I saw that, I was very, very intrigued because it was right up my alley with prevention, the whole thing that I was standing for, you know. And I had to learn as much as I could about the NRF2 pathway to really understand how big of a deal this could be. You know, I had gone to PubMed, I read the studies, I read all the cardiovascular studies that there were on protandim. At the time, there were 5. And I really got excited because, you know, in cardiology, we have a lot of great therapies for different things. We have great drugs for cholesterol, for high blood pressure. You know, we have tons of different procedures that we can do to fix things after they're broken. But what do we really do to prevent things from getting broken in the first place? And I knew the significant role that oxidative stress played in the development of coronary atherosclerosis, or plaque buildup in the arteries that leads to both heart attack and stroke. And so I started to research, I started to go into the literature and find out, you know, what role is there for reducing this oxidation that occurs to the LDL cholesterol, because it's the oxidized LDL that leads to plaque formation. And if you go to a doctor and say you want a lipid panel, you're going to get the standard lipid panel. You're going to get the total cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, and LDL. And that's what most of the recommendations are based on, is what's your LDL? If it's too high, they throw you on a statin. Well, that's not always necessarily the right answer. And if you look at the literature very, very, very closely, you'll find that it's the oxidized LDL cholesterol that's the stuff that gets into the walls of the artery and causes plaque. So the oxidized LDL is small, dense LDL, and the unoxidized LDL is large, fluffy. So those are the terms that we use, small, dense, or large, fluffy LDL. And what we've come to learn from looking at the studies is the large, fluffy LDL isn't really a problem. It's the small, dense LDL, and a standard lipid panel doesn't look at that. It only looks at the total LDL. So if you get a lipid panel and say your LDL is 130 or 140, most doctors are going to throw you on a statin at that point without digging any deeper. But if you dig deeper and you have what's called an advanced lipid panel done, where they measure your small, dense, and your large, fluffy, and if you find out that you've got almost all large, fluffy, then you don't need to go on a statin, because that large, fluffy LDL doesn't put you at risk for plaque formation. But if it's all small, dense LDL, then maybe going on a statin is the right idea. But the big question is, what causes the oxidation of the LDL? And guess what? It's oxidative stress. And so I got to thinking, what if reducing oxidative stress could reduce oxidized LDL cholesterol? And unfortunately, we don't have any studies on that right now, but that's a question before Dr. McCord retired that he and I bounced back and forth amongst ourselves. And he had actually wanted to do a study with protandim looking to see if it could prevent the buildup of blockage inside arteries. We don't have that data, so we can't say that that's the case, but there's some preliminary stuff, some kind of bench research that may suggest that's a possibility. And how great would that be? Now, to give you more of a visual on this small, dense versus large, fluffy LDL, think of it this way. You guys all know what a tennis net looks like, and you all know how big the holes are in the net, right? Well, imagine that you've got golf balls and you've got soccer balls, okay? The golf balls can very easily go through the net. The soccer balls can't. So the small, dense LDL is like the golf balls, and the large, fluffy LDL is like the soccer balls. So the small, dense LDL, the oxidized LDL, can get into the wall of the artery, can go through that net, get underneath the surface of the artery and start to grow a plaque, whereas the large, fluffy, the soccer balls can't make it through those holes, and therefore they can't form a plaque. So I am super excited about the potential with NRF2 activation that it may have by reducing the oxidized LDL cholesterol, and therefore potentially, could it play a role in prevention of atherosclerosis? And that's a topic that's going to be looked at, but we just don't have the answers right now. And then furthermore, the other thing that got me really excited from a cardiovascular standpoint with regard to NRF2 was, and we have started to learn about mitochondria with the NRF1 product and so forth, and that's really important. But as people age, their mitochondria don't work as well. And part of the reason for that is because of the excessive oxidative stress in those cells. So like in muscle cells, for example, oxidative stress can lead to poorly functioning mitochondria, and poorly functioning mitochondria can lead to increased oxidative stress. So it's kind of a two-way street. So imagine reducing oxidative stress and improving the mitochondrial function, the potential role that that could have in improving muscle function. And what is the heart? It's a big muscle. And so, you know, there's a lot of preliminary data suggesting that, in fact, through the anti-aging course that I went through, one of the instructors, who's probably one of the smartest guys that I know about nutrition and so forth related to heart disease, he's got this entire protocol for people that have poorly functioning heart muscle cells to help improve that. And one of the key things in that whole recipe, so to speak, is to increase glutathione levels. Do everything that you can to increase glutathione. What does NRF2 activation do? It increases glutathione. Much, much better than some of the techniques that he was using in his recipe. So, you know, the potential that we have with both NRF2 activation and NRF1 activation to improve cardiovascular health is absolutely huge. And I'm really excited about the future and the future studies that are going to happen in this whole arena. And I think that we're just really scratching the surface right now, because, you know, the only types of physicians that really understand NRF2 activation right now are docs that are either in the anti-aging, preventive medicine world, functional integrative medicine world, and possibly some neurologists, because, you know, Tecfidera is the NRF2 activator drug that they use to treat multiple sclerosis. So, you know, you will run into some neurologists who understand what NRF2 is, but cardiologists, they don't have a clue. This hasn't even scratched the surface of the cardiology literature at this point. But it will as people start to do studies in that regard, both looking at the role of NRF2 activation in atherosclerosis and also looking at the role of NRF2 and NRF1 activation with the role of improving the heart muscle cell function. So those are two areas that I would look for in the next 5 years to start to see some research coming out. And it is probably going to lead to new therapies for both heart failure and for atherosclerosis. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled. It's a very, very exciting area to be in. And so with that said, you can obviously see why I would be excited as a cardiologist who understands this NRF2 as to why, you know, I think that this is the future. It was interesting. I was teaching up in Edmonton, Alberta, LV Academy this past weekend. And when I do my trainings, at the end, I always like to ask the audience for questions and concerns that they get from potential prospects. And honestly, there's a list of about 20 things that keep recurring over and over and over. So I feel like if I'm able to help people understand how I would answer those questions, then they'll be better equipped to answer those questions, you know, as their prospects start to bring them up too. Well, one of the questions that was asked this last weekend up in Edmonton, was a question that I hadn't been asked before, and that is this a fad? And I said, you know, obviously this isn't a fad because, you know, NRF2 was discovered in the mid-90s. There's been an explosion of research in NRF2 in the past 5 years, and it's only going to get to be more and more as more pharmaceutical companies start to get into the world of NRF2. And, you know, the potential that we have with NRF2, and you can read all the studies. The NRF2 potential study is a great article. The Washington State article is a great article to look at the role that NRF2 has in different diseases. This isn't something that's going to slow down. This isn't something that's a fad. This isn't something that's going to go away. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you look at the research that's been done by the pharmaceutical companies to date, you know, the products that they have that activate NRF2 may do a decent job, but when you look at the comparative studies between Protandim and their synthetic NRF2 activators, Protandim has always come out on the top, being the most potent NRF2 activator. Now, because Protandim is a supplement and not a drug, we can't make any statements that it cures, treats, or prevents anything. But we know the pathway through which it works, which is NRF2, and to date, it's the most potent NRF2 activator that I've found that's ever been studied. So We've got pharmaceutical companies that are chasing us, trying to develop drugs based off of this Nerf2 technology. We've got an all-natural product that is the most potent because of the synergistic effect of the 5 ingredients together. And when I do my really in-depth science presentations on those too, I talk about this, because when I first learned about Nerf2, and then I learned that there were drugs out there that activated Nerf2, it struck me as odd that the drugs weren't as potent at activating Nerf2 as Protandim. So I actually asked Dr. McCord, I said, explain this to me. This doesn't make any sense, because whenever I've seen a synthetic drug and there's some natural product that works through the same mechanism, usually the synthetic drug is 10 to hundreds of times more potent than the natural one. And he said, Mark, it's because of the synergistic action of the 5 ingredients together. And so Nerf2, there's several places where you can actually activate it. You can increase its release from keep 1. You can increase its entry from the cytoplasm into the nucleus of the cell. You can increase its attachment to the antioxidant response element. You can prevent its degradation through a number of different pathways. So what's probably happening is the 5 ingredients in Protandim are working at different spots to activate the Nerf2, and that's likely why it's more potent than the single agents, the single chemicals that the drugs are at activating Nerf2. So when you put the whole thing together, you look at the trends in healthcare. Everybody's more interested in prevention. There's a huge market-driven trend. People want to prevent disease. We're living in an era where people are more interested in their health than they were 10 to 20 years ago. Number 2, we have an all-natural product. That's what people want. They want an all-natural product. They don't want to take drugs. I've had conversations with people over and over and over. Oh, I just hate taking drugs. I don't want to take drugs. And I understand that, because drugs are fraught with side effects and long-term consequences. Number 3, this Nerf2 thing isn't a fad. It's not going away. It's going to be around for at least the next 25 years. I mean, we have come upon a pathway, Nerf2, which I believe is the most important anti-aging pathway in the human body. That's not something that's going to go away. Okay, this is going to be with us for a long, long time. We have a product that everybody wants. It's affordable. We have synthetic drugs that are coming out that are trying to compete in this area that are significantly more expensive and have significantly more side effects and potential toxicities associated with them. We have something that can treat oxidative stress, the root cause of over 200 different diseases. So who wouldn't want that? This is something that, for the life of me, when I talk to people and they tell me no, I just shake my head. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people would say no to this and turn around and walk away. It just boggles my mind. But eventually, they'll realize what it is. Maybe it's going to take them 3 to 5 years. Maybe they're going to have to see more research. I don't know. But for me, after I read the research that we currently have available, that was enough for me to get excited and jump on board and scream it from the rooftops, tell everybody that I can possibly think of about why this is so important. And I love the concluding statement in the Washington State article where they say, Nerf2 may well become the most important preventive and therapeutic breakthrough in the history of medicine. You add that to the National Institute of Aging study that showed that Protandim was the only supplement to extend lifespan. It's like, how much more do you need? I mean, there are certainly skeptics out there, but at some point you just have to look at the data and say, yep, you're right, this is real, I need to get involved. Despite that, not everybody's going to do it. And that's just because of their own personality, whatever the case may be. But I'm excited beyond belief. We have something that nobody else has, that everybody else wants. And we have to be the advocates for this. We have to be the ones that go and tell people about it, because they're not going to hear it on an advertisement on TV. They're not going to see an ad in a magazine for it. We're the ones that have to get the word out. And it's our responsibility and obligation to do that, because we all have people that we love and care about that need to get on these products. And if we don't tell them about them, either they're not going to hear about it or they're going to hear about it from somebody else. So I would just encourage all of you guys, get out there, do everything that you can, show this to people in a loving way, not in a way that makes them feel like you're trying to sell them on something. I love Carrie Dickey's approach. She has 3 steps that she uses when she talks to people: listen, find their pain, offer a solution. And that's what I do every day. I carry on conversations with people. I don't jump on about Protandim from the get-go. I just listen and let the conversation proceed. Eventually, it's going to get around to something health or finance related. And when it does, I say, you know what, based on what you told me about X, and X could be a financial or a health issue, based on what you told me about X, there's something I'd like you to take a look at. It may or may not be for you, but it's helped a lot of people in a similar situation to you. Would you have 10 minutes so you could watch an ABC News story? And that's it. Then I have them watch the ABC News story, then I answer their questions, and we move on from there. It does not have to be any more complicated from that. That's how you share this in a loving manner without feeling salesy or jumping down people's throats. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do. Get out there, share this with the world. And for those of you guys that are in Colorado, and I know that this call is basically a bunch of Colorado people, I'm actually going to be there March 11th. I believe it's a Saturday. Lori Charette is going to be setting up a meeting there, and I would love to have all of you guys come and bring your prospects, and I will do everything I can to try to share the science behind this for your folks and get them to understand why this is something that they should start taking now and never quit. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Patty.
Wow, Dr. Gordon, I'm sitting here. I have a little sticky note that is completely full of notes. We're not going to bog you down with a lot of questions, but there's 2 things that, I mean, I could sit on here and listen forever because this is something that is so dear to me, and I love this business. I love this product. But there's one question I have. My first one is, how does inflammation relate to all of this? And with, I mean, I know that's what got me excited was the patent to reduce inflammation. Can you just speak to that a little bit? And then also the second question would be the NRF2 activators that are out there that are being sold in doctors' offices. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Well, inflammation, oxidative stress are often used interchangeably. They're not exactly the same thing, but they're very similar. So the instructor that I had for the cardiovascular modules for the anti-aging course said that the blood vessels have a finite number of responses to an infinite number of insults. And those finite number of responses are inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction. And interestingly, NRF2 activation actually affects all 3 of those things: oxidative stress, inflammation, and immune dysfunction. It improves all 3 of those. So inflammation plays a key role in the development of a lot of different diseases, but oxidative stress is pretty much the same thing with regard to physicians selling stuff in their offices. There's a lot of companies that sell nutritional supplements only to physicians and healthcare providers so that they can resell them in their offices. And generally, they're very, very high quality supplements, and they go through, very rigorous testing. It's not like the stuff that you go buy at Walmart or Sam's Club. Okay, these are top quality products. And so the NRF2 activating products that are being sold in doctors' offices that are not Protandim are usually by these types of companies. And so the quality of the ingredients in the products, I'm certain, is very, very high. The question is, does their combination of products do what Protandim does? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why we can say that is every company that I've seen like this, these top-notch nutraceutical companies like Zymogen, for example, or Pure Encapsulations, and I've bought products from both companies. They're good companies. Each time one of those companies has come out with one of these types of, quote, NRF2 activating products, I have contacted the company and I've said, I want to see all of the studies that you have on your product about NRF2 activation. And so what they end up sending me is studies on the individual ingredients that are in their product. And I go, no, that's not what I want. I want studies on your completed product. How much does it activate NRF2? Have you done any studies on any specific things? And the answer is always no. So they're riding on the coattails of success of Protandim, hoping that their combination of ingredients may do the same thing as Protandim, but they have no evidence that it does. And so I'm a very evidence-driven person. If they don't have the scientific studies that show that this stuff does anything, why on earth would I spend my money on it when I know that there's a product out there that has proven science behind it like Protandim? So I really shoot down these companies and say, look, I'm sure the quality of your ingredients is fine, but if you don't have any studies that even shows that this is the NRF2 activator, how on earth can you advertise that it is? And so I steer people away from that stuff.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Shannon, I know you've got a couple of business questions. Take it away, my friend.
I do. Thank you. And thank you so much, Dr. Gordon. A couple questions for you. You had an amazingly successful cardiology practice. You're now a full-time network marketer. Can you talk about why you made that change? And, you know, am asking this with the utmost respect. Doctors, you know, are used to knowing the answers, are used to knowing everything and giving people guidance. But coming into network marketing, you had to be coachable. You had to be the student. Can you address how you successfully did that?
Well, that's part of the reason why most physicians aren't successful in this. It's because they're not coachable and teachable. And, you know, the fact that I was made it so that I could be successful. And Carrie Dickey very early on had a conversation with me after I signed up 4 people on $50 business packs without ordering any product. She called me up and she said, "Mark Gordon, you're a cardiologist. If I've got a heart problem, I'm coming to see you. I'm a professional network marketer, and if you want to grow your business, you're going to listen to me and you're going to do what I tell you to do. Do not sign any more people up on the $50 business pack. And if you do, I'm going to come up to South Dakota and I'm going to give you 50 lashes with a wet noodle." And following that conversation, she told me, she said she thought that that was going to be the end. She thought I was going to get offended and go away and crawl into my hole and not do anything. But I actually kind of laughed and I said, "Okay, Carrie, you're right. I'm going to listen to you." And so I did. Then I started doing things the way that she told me to. And then that's when we started to become successful. But most doctors, number one, have an aversion to nutritional supplements because they're taught in medical school that the only thing that supplements do is give you expensive urine. And number two, they have a complete aversion to network marketing. So those are 2 gigantic hurdles that most physicians can't get over. The only ones that, as I said, I believe can are ones that are, number one, in independent practice, and number 2, have an interest in anti-aging, functional, or integrative medicine. You go to standard MDs and talk to them about this, you know, you can talk to them until you're blue in the face and you're not going to get anywhere. That's why I don't generally talk to doctors unless I know that they have an interest in more natural treatment options, because it's like banging your head against the wall. At some point, your head starts bleeding and you just say enough is enough. So I wouldn't waste your time.
Wow. Wow. Such great information. I mean, every question that we possibly could come up with, you already answered the question before we were thinking to ask the question. So thank you so much. We know your time is valuable. We've gone long. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Shannon, is there any closing statements you'd like to make with Dr. Gordon?
I just wanted to say thank you too. Thank you. I know you're very busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak with our group and our groups, everyone who's here on the call, and everybody, same time next week.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gordon, we just really thank you so much. Shannon, you're amazing. We look forward to seeing you March 11th. We will figure out all everything that's happening and get our people there. Thanks again, you guys. Dr. Gordon, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And you guys, I think you have enough tools in your toolbox to go out and share this with somebody today. So everybody have a great Friday. And Dr. Gordon, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.